Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2 Point Conversion Monday night pregame show here on the Going for Two Live Network. We're going to talk about the Houston Texans and the Dallas Cowboys here on the 2 Point Conversion. So sit tight and join us for the next hour plus before Monday Night Football kicks off.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here we are. I've had the line up the whole time, so everyone knows it's Houston Texans, Dallas Cowboys tonight. Going for Two Live Network. I'm so excited. I can barely get it out. But my name is Kyle Senra. I'm one of the co-hosts, as well as my lovely co-host, Gladys Louise Tyler. How are you doing, Gladys?
Good, Kyle. How are you?
I'm doing great.
How's Canada going? How's it going up there?
It's actually been a little warmer than the
yeah?
snow at the end of October. So the end of November has been not so bad. So that's nice. It's going to get colder soon. And now, CFL is done. The Toronto Argonauts, as much as I hate to admit it, are the Grey Cup champions. So, I always look forward to next year. We also look forward to having Jason Gator J on with us tonight. How you doing, Jay?
I am doing good. Yeah, I was going to bring up the Argonauts win there. I believe that was it yesterday?
Yeah,
that was I saw that and I was like, Kyle's not going to be in a great mood tomorrow.
Whatever. I'm mostly over it. I mean, the Ticats didn't even make the playoffs. So like the season's when they started 2-9, like this felt over in August, to be honest. So like I was very much looking. Okay, Packers, you're my only hope.
Nice game,
Bears.
Nice.
Hey, you know what, Jamie? I guess some teams are lucky, right? Because 2 weeks in a row, blocked field goal for the win, and it's blocked by, in this case, the Packers against the Bears. The Chiefs did it, and Jamie was talking about the luck of it. But I still attest, some teams are just really good at special teams, and it's hilarious. The Packers have come so full swing. Do you both remember I think it was the 2021 playoffs? The Packers were the 1 seed. I think it was another MVP season for Rodgers. So they had first round bye, hosted the 49ers in the divisional round, lost 13-10. The 49ers didn't score a touchdown. The Packers defense had an amazing game. The offense, accounted for 10 points. So like the offense in theory did their job if you hold the opposing defense to, I think, 2 field goals. But they had a punt block that was returned for a touchdown for the winning points in like the last 2 minutes of the game, and that did it, and that won the game. And like that's when they hired Rich Bisaccia, and they said, never will special teams be the doom of us again. And in fact, like they've invested a lot into special teams. I know Bisaccia, as well as being special teams coordinator, he is he gets like basically as much personnel say as head coach Matt LaFleur does. It's all Brian Gutekunst, the GM, gets final say on the roster. But there's a lot of input on Bisaccia on who to keep for special teams roles, just as much as the head coach LaFleur has for certainly on offense, or what Jeff Hafley would say for the defensive players. So they've given him, I think he's one of the higher paid special teams coordinators, but they've also given him like roster responsibility too, and like really like you're an integral coach to this team, and it like something like that shows, because when they needed it, it seemed very much like the Chiefs, where it wasn't just one guy got lucky. The guy that where the kick happened to go through was the lucky guy. There was like 3 or 4 guys all past the line, their arms up, ready to block it. Same thing with that Chiefs-Broncos thing. There's like 4 guys past the Broncos players. Like, what's the kicker to do? Some teams just drill in the special teams, and I just recorded the Full Press Packers pod, so maybe that's why I'm so in the mood of talking of this. But I mentioned that with the Bears, all the changes this week, new offensive coordinator coming in, there was probably so much emphasis placed on the offense in practice, and Eberflus kind of taking it upon himself. I got to make this defense better. Did they not drill the special teams as much this week as they would normally in an effort to maybe, I can understand why, really hammer down having this new offensive coordinator, really trying to drill the defensive details. Sometimes you overlook the special teams, and it seems like with Bisaccia, the Packers will no longer overlook special teams. And they've gone from being one of the worst units in the league, like that year in 2021, I looked it up, and I looked it through the like Football Outsiders all-time worst DVOA special teams units, and the Packers allowed more kick return yards than all those teams. Like I couldn't find anyone that was even close. There was other areas where the Packers weren't so bad, but their kick return coverage was atrocious. They allowed like 2,000 kick return yards that year or something. Like it was insane how bad it was, and like those areas have gotten better. So sometimes that's what it takes for teams like the Chiefs and Packers to win, in spite of another Jordan Love interception. Apparently, do either of you know the quarterback? What's his name? I don't even remember his name. 1944 was the last time a Packers quarterback threw threw interceptions in 8 straight games to start a season. Not even Favre did that. So that's where we're at with Love.
I mean, you could also count it up to another Eberflus like fuck up. I mean, instead of trying to move further in, it's 46 yards. You're just going to let your kicker go for 46 yards. They could have at least gotten 5, 6 more yards, or in theory, they could have tried, and he didn't even try that. So
no, they just wasted the timeout, right? Yeah, the third down, they called it right down. I was saying that too. I know Brady. Remember, Kevin Burkhardt was like freaking, "Oh my God, what are they doing? They're going to mess this up." And Brady was like, "No, I see what they're doing. They're saying that like this is it. Like we're going to run one last play, and it wasn't even a run play. They just kneeled down and
they kneeled down. Yeah,
and
they
called another timeout. And it was like, okay, that seems like he could have. Yeah, Roshan could have honestly, the Packers couldn't stop the run that game. That was a big problem, and it allowed the Bears to just convert on third downs. And apparently the Bears went from being like the worst third down team in the NFL to just like almost perfect on third down yesterday. It was awful how bad the Packers defense was playing, really. Kind of lucky that like their red zone defense kind of held up to the point where like they only scored 19. I mean, they blocked a field goal. Should have been 22. Really, the Bears should have won that game. Like the Packers didn't play great. I did think the floor.
Special team players did say that because the kick was so far back, because it was at 46 yards, they knew that it wasn't going to have the trajectory. It was going to have to go straight. Then they knew they were going to block it. I mean, it was like the chances of blocking it were way better than if they had moved up like 6, 9 yards. So, yeah, I mean, yay, Packers won, I guess, but they fired the wrong coach. I mean, that's just the bottom line.
I mean, I thought the offense did look improved. They were definitely, there was a conceded effort to get the ball out of Caleb's hands quickly.
Oh no, Tommy Brown did a very much better job than Shane Waldron, but we're talking low bar, but both of them should be gone.
Eberflus for sure be gone.
Eberflus like, and Sean Waldron should be
okay,
gone.
So here's something. How do you guys think about this? Because on last week's episode of the Full Press Packers pod, we were supposed to do a Bears-Packers preview, and we brought in Carlos Nazario, former Full Press coverage editor for the Bears, and we basically spent the whole episode just talking about what's wrong with the Bears and very little on the game. We thought the Packers would just steamroll the Bears, not a 1-point victory, but I'll take the win. He thinks Eberflus might come back next year because the McConskys are so cheap and because his contract is through 2026, they don't want to pay him 2 years to not coach. So they might just swallow the money, or not swallow the money and like force him to kind of earn that contract for 1 more year to be really bad. And then by 2026, it'll be so bad that it's only 1 year. We can at that point justify it, but there's a chance he's back next year. So that's just the nature. Like the Bears have in their entire history, they're one of the 2 oldest teams in the NFL, one of the 3 oldest teams in football, at least in USA, because I guess the Toronto Argonauts are actually the oldest football team in North America. But they've never fired a coach midseason. This is the same ownership family that's owned it from the get-go. Like this is Georgia McConsky, I think, is George Halas's granddaughter. So I guess families own this team the whole time, and they've run it one way, and they're not going to change. So he's definitely not going to get fired midseason, no matter how bad it gets. Because no matter how bad it gets, he's probably not as bad as Urban Meyer. So there's always going to be, it's not as the worst ever, right? Like there's that benchmark there that the McConkeys can kind of rest on. But he shouldn't be the coach next year, but there's a chance he is. So just to know why some teams are always bad, ownership is maybe part of it, the problem here.
But I guess I can kind of see it, kind of understand it, because when you look at with what they did, okay, you've got Caleb Williams, rookie, You go out there and you spend a bunch of money, go get, surrounding with players that are supposed to, put you into the playoffs, whatnot. But then you look around the league, look at teams like Jacksonville, who goes and gets a number 1 overall pick. How many head coaches has Trevor Lawrence been around already in the league, right? And we're already ready to just toss him aside because maybe it is Trevor Lawrence, but we can't say that without 100% certainty that he didn't have 500 different head coaches. Same thing that we're talking about with Bryce Young. He's already gone through 2 head coaches. And it's I am not saying by any means that Eberflus is the right decision or right coach. I think they got this wrong to start with, but they're not going to admit it. And why fire him now? It's going to cost you more money to fire him now, and you may set your franchise quarterback back a year or 2 or 5 if you do go and fire him. At least let him get a little bit of time to not getting his feet wet, but at least get settled from that college game. Because we all knew that, as good and as talented as Caleb Williams is, there were still flaws and still are flaws in his game. Changing a head coach at this point, or even at the end of this season, where now he's going into year 2 with a second, head coach, and not even just the head coach, because when it's the head coach, it's all the coaching staff. So now you're changing the whole building again. He's already gone through it, basically going from college to Chicago, and now you're going to do it again. I guess I can see why they wouldn't go and fire Eberflus, no matter how bad it is. I mean, they're 4-6. They're not. It's not horrible. They're just kind of like my Buccaneers. They're in a division that it's going to be tough to win, especially with the Packers and Detroit.
And
Just
Minnesota.
tough.
Really, too, because the Vikings also won again.
I think that if they don't fire Eberflus at the end of the season, it's not necessarily that the whole staff goes. Like Indianapolis kept their DC, right? Didn't Indy keep their DC when they went to a new coach?
I thought Eberflus was the DC in Indy.
No, it's a guy that never changes.
Okay.
What's his name? He always goes with the. He's always.
Steichen?
No. When Steichen came in, he kept the DC that they had before. I thought. Is that wrong?
Gus Bradley is currently
right. Indy's DC. Wasn't he DC before Steichen?
I'm not sure. I'm looking up right now. So yeah, since 2022. I guess this is Steichen's second season.
Right. So
he was the DC the year before. Or I guess that would have been, was that Frank Reich?
Yeah. They could
and that's where the connection, Reich and Steichen and all those guys, they knew each other from Philly, so
they could keep Brown. I mean, they could keep the OC. I just don't think that. I think it's malpractice. Like Dallas not getting a running back at the beginning of the season.
They just fired the OC. So now you're talking about another OC?
No,
I think she's
Tommy Brown. They should keep Tommy Brown.
Yeah, if he looks to be like the best option possible, because I think the problem is, I think one of Eberflus's biggest weaknesses is his inability to surround himself with good coaches. I think that's been a huge problem. So I don't really trust him to go out and get a better OC. Like if they've lucked into this one with Thomas Brown, that's probably about as good as it's going to get under Eberflus, right? So if they do, yes, that's the one thing. Like if that's the biggest issue with Caleb's development was the fear of a Luke Getsy / Shane Waldron level offensive coordinator to have such a bad offense to instill bad habits. If you have Brown, maybe Eberflus being there, you're not as worried about Caleb's development because Thomas Brown's offense at least shelters him from Eberflus's negative influence. That is still, again, situational football things when it matters most still seem to not be hammered in. So one of the other big things that Carlos shouted out in the Full Press Packers pod was accountability. This team has had a huge lack of accountability, and doing stuff like they cut Nate Davis last week. He was a free agent they picked up last year from the Titans, and it was expected to, trading for DJ Moore, signing Nate Davis. We've put the tools around Justin Fields, and it seems like he has not worked out well at all. So they cut him, and frankly, the Bears O-line played pretty well last week. So maybe that's a sign of now players are going to be held accountable for when they make mistakes, and whereas it seemed like a lot slid before with players, and that's why there's been so many mistakes made, is because they're practicing mistakes, and it's being allowed to let slide. Maybe Eberflus has woken up and realized like he at least needs to do that part properly and hold players accountable. The rest of it on his own, he's still a bad coach, and he's never going to not be a bad coach until he figures out the situational football side of it. And maybe he definitely seems like someone that's best served to be a defensive coordinator. Like he's probably in over his head as a head coach, and he just happened to go with, unlike some other guys that maybe got fired, like Nathaniel Hackett after 1 year, you just happen to go to a team not owned by the Walmarts, but by a family that maybe doesn't have the money to just throw around and fire coaches willy-nilly, and they'll be patient with you. On any other franchise, he's probably like not even this far into his tenure before getting fired. So,
I think on any other franchise, he like Justin Fields' second year, he would have been gone. Like,
shoot, I mean, so far, no other team's hired him as a head coach ever, so there's no proof that any other team would have hired him as a head coach, even though it probably would have been.
Go ahead, Jay.
I was just going to say, I think that's some of my issue with the NFL and its coaching as a whole. I mean, we just rehash the exact same coaches and move them from team to team. When there's only 32 head coaching position, which means there's only 32 offensive coordinators, which also means there's only 32 defensive coordinators. Listen, you've got these guys in college and in high school that have been doing this job for years among years, and we're just going to keep rehashing the same guy, go from one team to the next, and expect what was it? The definition of insanity is to do the exact same thing again and expect a different result. That's what head coach. That's what NFL ownership does, and I think maybe it's beyond the time. If you are not good at your job, maybe you do get a second chance, but these third and these fourth and these fifth chances from team to team to team is just absolutely asinine and ridiculous. There is no difference from what the OC that got fired from where was it, Green Bay? Then he goes to Denver because they thought that they could get Aaron Rodgers, right? Hackett, and then he gets fired there halfway through the season. He goes to the Jets, so they could get, and he's been fired again. Dude sucks. He's horrible.
To be fair, he was never fired from the Packers. Like, he left the Packers, like, okay, you left from OC to get promoted to head coach.
Right, but we saw how great of a head coach he was.
No, he was awful. That was clearly an awful decision by Denver. I'm saying I think it's just as bad on Eberflus, but yeah.
But that's what I mean. But there's these other coaches in college that deserve the opportunity to prove themselves at this level and probably have a better connection with these players, being that they are closer in age, number one. They just dealt with most of their age group in college instead of these 50, 60-year-olds that are so, what's the right word here, outdated when it comes to the way they approach the game or their play calling or their acumen with players. It's not always my way or the highway. These kids, they're not always the smartest tool in the shed, but all it takes is a little bit of sharpening.
No, for sure. Coaches don't develop players nearly enough. Go ahead, Gladys. Sorry.
I was listening to, I think it was The Athletic today or yesterday, and they were saying, and at the end they were talking about how you can tell, like, the coaches that bring a certain culture and connect with the players, as opposed to the coaches that are set in their own ways, that aren't developing. They're not a coach, no matter how good he was 5 years ago, still has to develop with the times. And there are coaches that aren't doing that. I think that, like the Mike Tomlin, for instance, and I mean, I am a homer, but Tomlin has a culture that develops with the players. Like, I mean, I think that Antonio Brown was always fucking batshit crazy ever since that hit he got from, what's his face on the Ravens?
Vontaze Burfict, 2015 playoffs, yeah.
Oh, fuck yeah. Yeah.
Perfect.
But
That's an ultimate what if, because they might have beat the Broncos, and who knows against them and the Patriots that year.
and then Harbaugh and the Chargers is like the best thing. Like if they had the same coach they had last year, they would have lost that game Sunday night. There's
Yeah,
no
they would have
doubt in my
choked it
mind.
away, and they would have
They
been
would have
powerless
choked it
instead
away.
of winning at the
Exactly.
end. Yeah, no, for sure. I was thinking that too. Like, man, like, yeah, that's a sign, a good sign for Harbaugh that they actually didn't lose that game.
But that goes right along with what I was saying, right, Gladys? These
Mhm.
coaches, these college coaches, and you brought up
Exactly.
a perfect example because when he was still at Michigan, he was recruiting a kicker from about 40 miles from me, this little small town, Moultrie, Georgia. And he was recruiting a kicker from over there. And in order to recruit this kicker, who is, again, South Georgia now, these kids get out here at 6 a.m. On a Saturday, even those schools, even during the school year, because that's time you go hunt. They get out at 6 a.m., get their trucks loaded up, and they get out in the woods. Well, guess where Jim Harbaugh is trying to recruit this kid? In full camo gear, out in the woods. Jim Harbaugh slept in his house that night because over there, this kid actually, doesn't. His parents aren't hurting for money. In the woods, he has a tree house, and that's where
Oh my God.
Jim Harbaugh hung out. Who has it better than Jim?
So much.
Nobody. I mean, but that's the acumen you have to have. These players, even though they're NFL players, even though, yes, they are adults, they're not college kids, they're still, for the most part, 20-something-year-old kids.
I would argue that most of them coming in, and not all of them, but most of them aren't officially adults. Like these are people who have one thing on. In order to get to where they are, they had to do this one thing their entire life. They have no outside reference for anything. So I would say their social skills, their mental skills are directed towards that one thing. And that's not a bad thing, but I think it stilts your development. It stilts your development to be able to socialize with people. It stilts your development to understand things outside of the reference point that you have because you only have one reference point. To be that good, you have to have one reference point. So yeah, we're not dealing with adult. We're not dealing with what you and I, or anyone who has more than one reference point would consider an adult because they're not. They are football players, and I think there's a stark difference between a fully developed adult and a fully developed football player and a fully developed basketball player. Anyone who gets to that level has to have had like so much concentration on what they were doing that I don't think that you treat them like you treat everyone else.
That's a really good point. I don't know that I can add much to that, but I will say, Gladys, I don't think
Yeah.
your Tomlin take is biased at all because I was just thinking, Jay, like you can chime in on this too, but like I'm ranking NFL head coaches. I'm probably ranking Tomlin third, certainly in the top five. Like I don't think I could name five coaches better than Tomlin in the league right now. So I definitely don't think that's a biased opinion.
No, I don't think it's bias at all. I think it goes right to the point that Gladys and I were both nailing. There was, even though Tomlin is 50 something years old now, he has his way of connecting with the players themselves, each and every one of them players. He's not stuck in that my way or the highway. My way is the only way mold, right? He will bend to each and every player. They're going to follow his lead for sure.
Mhm.
But he's not going to sit there and try to force their round, the round bodies into this square hole, right? He's going to maneuver that hole and their bodies to where now it's not a square, it's not round, it's more of an octagon, can put them together. You see what
It's a human shaped hole. You can run right through it.
Yeah, but that's Tomlin for you, right? That's the kind of they call them player coaches, right? That's what Tomlin is. He relates to his players, and his players in turn play their heart out. It doesn't matter if the score is 60-0 or if they're down by 60 or if they're up by 3. They're playing their heart outs from bell to bell.
And I think and you guys know how much I hate Sean Payton. Like, I think he's a dick. But I think that his biggest strength this year was that he started out the same way. Like, he was going to make Bo Nix be Drew Brees. And then all the talk around here was how much Vance Joseph was out coaching him, how much the defense was holding him up. And you can tell that after, 5 or 6 games, Bo Nix is starting to be what Bo Nix is supposed to be. Like, Sean Payton has let the offense go into a direction that is better for Bo Nix and not better for Sean Payton. And that a sign of growth, I guess. He's still a dick, but it's still a sign that he has understood that he can't be a Doug Peterson. He can't make the player into what Sean Payton's glory years was. He has to let Bo Nix do what he's best at.
See, and I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. I mean, you're dead on. He's got Bo Nix doing what he's supposed to be doing, especially for a rookie quarterback. What I'm disagreeing with is I think he was relating with Bo Nix at the very beginning, and he did want Bo Nix to learn the game and not force the game, right?
Mhm.
Coming from Auburn and then Oregon, Bo Nix, even at Auburn, would force the game. It just seemed like he'd always force it, even in college. And you look at his first 2 weeks where he threw multiple interceptions, kind of forcing the game there. And that's where Peyton was like, listen, use your legs. We'll get the passing game right. Use your legs, keep your head in the game. And you saw where he started to run the ball quite a bit, getting 35, 40 yards a game. And then as the weeks go on, you're starting to see Bo Nix, okay, stuff's starting to click. The passing game, the game's slowing down for him. And I think a lot of that tribute to Sean Payton for settling him down, right? I'm with you, though. I can't stand Sean Payton. I think he's a horrible person, but a damn good head coach. And very much like Tomlin can relate with his players.
Although I
Yeah,
will
when
say-
he
Sorry.
chooses to. Yes, I
Yeah.
agree. When he chooses to.
Yeah, don't get on. He's like my wife. Don't get on the bad side. It's hell to get off.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I just think that I think he melded his offense there.
Mhm.
I agree with you. I think that he wasn't Nick's like throwing like 45 and 40 pass attempts like his first 2 or 3 games.
Yeah,
Like,
he had
was
42 his first 42 attempts the first game, 35 the second, 36 the third. And he's the highest he's gone since then is 37, and that was in Carolina. He's hovering at that 30, right about 30 or so a game since week 3.
Yeah, I mean, I yeah, I agree. I agree with what you said. He's totally Sean Payton has adjusted, and he still is a horrible person, but he is a good head coach. The Broncos are getting what they paid for out of him.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's still trademarks of his system, right? Like part of
Yeah. Oh
makes
yeah.
him a good head coach is I'm going to set up quick, easy, short throws for the quarterback. Like a lot of plays, first read, the guy's going to be open just by the nature of the route. Same thing with Sean Payton. I think the one advantage Tomlin has is that he's not putting his whole coaching thing on the system. I mean, he was coordinator with the Bucks, right, when they won the Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken, Jay. And so,
yeah.
So I think
No,
it's
he was under. He was with Dungy, so it was before we won the Super
The
Bowl.
year before.
Yeah.
Okay, but I mean, I know the head coach replacement, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, Gruden still retained a lot of that staff, right? It wasn't like I know they replaced Dungy, but it feels like
I'd have to double check because I believe Gruden brought his own staff in because the Bucks paid a nice penny for that.
fair enough.
But there is a possibility. I know Tomlin was there and was a dynamic coach.
Yeah, Tomlin has a Super Bowl ring from the Bucks
it from
championship,
Tampa?
so
Okay.
he would have still been on the Bucks.
It
Staff.
would have been the Gruden. It would have been the
So
Gruden.
I mean, I think, and I mean, like we saw that with the Packers this year. Like Jeff Halfley came in, but he did still like he got rid of some coaches, but he also did retain certain coaches, right? So clearly, Gruden identified Tomlin as okay. He's someone I do want to keep from Dungy's staff, and I think he it seems like he held the position of defensive backs coach through that whole time. So okay, you've got this covered. But I think with Tomlin, it's the details, right? Like he's a coach that's I'm not in the in the lab making up some incredible system and letting my coordinators coach it. He's someone who seems like he's in the trenches coaching the players up and he trusts his coordinators to, like, they're the ones creating the system. I'm making sure the details are drilled down. I think the players respect that from him because, like, he's right there with them, and like he's gonna hold them accountable himself. Like, if he see something with a player, he'll just tell them, "You got to get this better." And I think the players love that. They're not having to, oh, the coach said this. Like, I think a lot of players, they just want to set it straight to my face, right? The head coach is right there telling you how you got to get better. I think the players are going to listen and respond a lot better than if it comes through.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I mean, going back to, again, Jim Harbaugh, look at what we saw in the offseason when he was out there pulling the sleds or pushing the sleds right next to his squad. I mean, it is what it is. You get out there, you can relate with the player. The player is going to be able to relate with you or feel like they can and feel like you are one of them and not just, a superior. You're not just the boss, right? You're also out here grinding with us. Yeah, you're in the building at 3 a.m. You don't leave until midnight, kind of a thing. If you leave at all, kind of, during the season. But it's, I'm not the epitome of, I'm not asking you to do anything I don't do.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Which is a sign of a good boss in any surroundings. And I think, like, the most awesome take from this week, aside from there was just, like, really great games all during the week, is that the New England Patriots and the New York Jets have the same record, and the Patriots did not have to sell their soul to Aaron Rodgers to have it. That is, like, the most awesome stat from this week.
Yep, and they didn't fire a head coach yet either.
Actually, I will say a lot of criticism was said about Mayo calling the player soft in public. They've responded well to it, though, so maybe, like, that was very intentional on his part. And like, I know it seemed like it was a heavily criticized move at the time, but maybe that was actually a smart move. Maybe that was stuff he was telling them before and they weren't responding. So I call him out in public, because I seemed like the players were very angry about it, but a lot of players kind of, I guess it's on us to prove them wrong, right? And I think they've kind of taken the onus. And I know there's been fear, do you cause a backlash and a rift on the players and they give up? It seems like maybe the opposite's happened. So Mayo maybe deserves some credit for that, because it's
and Mayo's been in that system for a long time. I mean, the people that were giving backlash hadn't been in that system.
Belichick was one. Belichick was kind of saying that he didn't necessarily like that, and that was someone who was there with a lot of those players.
Yeah, but Belichick isn't there, and Mayo is. So
yeah, no, exactly. I think it's Mayo's team now, right? Like, that's him putting a stamp on it. Yeah.
Yeah,
and Jay Eubanks joining us here.
What up, Jay? How's our puppy doing? Going for 2 in LA traffic. Ooh, yuck. Yeah. Sorry.
But speaking of puppies, we're gonna have some underdog picks tonight, because Jamie was asking for it literally. Do we have any Monday Night Football props for tonight?
Jamie needs to calm the fuck down.
Okay, well, I was gonna say you gotta. Jamie's going hard at us, just like the players want to be coached hard, like Jay's saying here.
Yeah, Jamie's trying to get like 17 slips in the night.
I know. Yeah, calm down, Jamie. Calm down. You got time, buddy. You got time.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Jamie's probably already getting them all in. I guess he wants to hear from us what we have to say. But I agree with Jay, though. I think most players do probably want to be coached hard.
I think most players want to be told what, if you're messing up. Everyone does. Like, I don't know very few people who are like, oh yeah, I messed up. Don't tell me. I'll just keep messing up. You want to know if you're doing something wrong and how to correct it, mainly. So, yeah, I think most players want to be coached hard. They just don't want to be coached incorrectly, if that makes sense. They don't want, don't put me in a system that I can't flourish in, and that I can't, just because it's your system.
But I also think there's a line of, sorry, Gladys.
Go ahead.
There's a line of coaching hard, but also being disrespectful. I think we've seen, like, Matt Patricia cross that line.
Oh my God, Matt Patricia!
Just like or even Urban Meyer. Like, we've seen really bad examples of that. So, like, that's also a skill set too. Is like knowing how to coach the players hard, but again, making it about the play and not the players themselves. You're not criticizing their character, who they are. You're criticizing technique, and, like, I think that's the thing too. Is like players, coach me on the things that need to be coached up. Don't be kind of preaching to me about my life or something.
Oh, yeah. White men failing up. Urban Meyer, Matt Patricia, Dennis Allen. Very sad.
The zen that these guys are not coached right now, right? And the calm of Monday night before the storm of Monday Night Football.
Gladys, if you saw this or not, it's been on social media. It's been on ESPN and all that. But of course, me being a Gator fan, I actually got to see it happen live because it was the Florida LSU game, and I cannot remember the kid's name now for the wide receiver for LSU. But Brian Kelly pulls him out of the game, or he's exchanging out of the game anyway. Kelly grabs a hold of the player, and not viciously grabs a hold of him, but grabs a hold of him, and basically you can't hear what they're saying, but if you can read any kind of sort of somewhat lip read, you know what the hell he's saying. And he basically said, "Don't fucking walk away from me. You are so fucking uncoachable. I don't even know why the fuck you're here." And I'm like, that is not how you gain respect from your players.
Brian Kelly is the prime example of a white man failing up. Brian Kelly,
but it's family.
Oh my God. When he got there and he tried that Louisiana accent, I thought they should have just like fired him right then. Yeah. Like, just go. The player took it. The player just
GAO go.
You couldn't really see it because the camera is off to the one side, and he didn't have a visor on or anything. But you can tell that he's just like a blank stare out into space.
Yeah,
because Brian Kelly's like 5'1".
Exactly.
He's the player is just looking across.
I could probably punt you.
He's like, you can just see it in his facial expression. Like, I'm not fucking listening to your own ass.
Exactly.
Leave me the fuck alone. I'm done with you anyway, kind of a thing. It was quite humorous. But it's crazy that happened on Saturday, and then we're talking about this, a couple of days later but now NFL style of coaching. I just, you have to be able to relate with players no matter what level it is, and that's how you're going to be able to get them to respond.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I don't know if the Cowboys are going to respond to Mike McCarthy.
Oh my God, Jay! I was just about to make that transition. You're amazing and great, worth every penny we paid you. Thanks, Jeff. But yes, Dallas Cowboys hosting the Houston Texans, and the Texans are road favorites, 7.5-point road favorites. We had I guess I was keeping track of this. We had home favorites for the whole stretch, and then we had a few weeks in a row of road favorites. Then we went back to a few home favorites, back to a road favorite again. But yes, 41.5 is the higher lower, and Jamie's asking for props. So, yeah, here we are. You're right. It's okay, Jamie. You're forgiven for asking about Monday Night Football on a podcast that's titled Monday Night Football.
Don't forgive him for me. I didn't fucking forgive him. That was like to me.
Oh, I mean, all right, fair enough. I'm sorry, Gladys. Please forgive me for forgiving Jamie.
All right, you're forgiven, Kyle.
Oh, thanks. You rock. The shirt says "Women Rock," and Gladys definitely rocks. But yeah, so who wants to begin tonight? Where do we start in terms of?
Why don't you tell us what Dan picked?
All right. Do you want me to tell him just all three of his picks, and then we?
Yeah.
All right. So, well, first off, if anyone watched his show. He was talking about two Texans players in particular going higher on, and he was super comfortable with at their lines. One was Joe Mixon. I think it was at 84.5 rushing yards. He was expecting 100 yards just based on the Cowboys defense. He also thought a touchdown too, but it seemed like he really liked that 84.5 rush yards. Anything lower than 90, he said he was going to take. But I was a little surprised to see he went with Nico Collins in his return game higher than 60.5 receiving yards.
Ooh.
And his thought is, and he talked with us on the show, Collins can get that in one half, and then if they're up by so much, he can get shut down and still hit the higher. So he thinks 60.5 is low enough that, heck, with the way Stroud throws it deep to Collins, one catch sometimes, right? So I get that logic from Dan that even if Collins doesn't play the full game, he could still hit this 60.5.
So he went with Collins and not Mixon for this show?
Yeah, he officially went for our show, not show. He went with Nico Collins, yes.
All right. But did he go higher or lower?
On the game total, he actually matched you, Gladys. Texans I put plus 7.5. It should be minus 7.5. Texans as the 7.5 favorites and lower on the 41.5. Which I think is perfectly in line with you.
Dan was here, and only because you say he went with Nico Collins at what, 60?
Yeah.
and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's already bumped all the way up to 74.5 right now on Underdog.
Nice.
So if
Nice.
you watch and I mean, he put this out Sunday actually. So if you watch this on Sunday, you got that line at that good price, then you'd be super happy.
Yeah. And the same thing with the Mixon line though too. You said he got it at 84, I believe you said 84 and a half.
Yeah.
I like the Mixon line at 87 and a half. I did that this morning. And that line is now at 91 and a half.
And I think Dan said that he was willing to go up to 90, I think he said.
Yeah.
So 91 and a half, I think he would still.
Well,
he might still take 74 on Nico, but certainly.
And he's absolutely correct. I mean, Mixon is leading the league in averaging 21 and a half rushing attempts per game. The Cowboys, stopping the run this season, have allowed 152 yards rushing per game, 31st in the league, 4.7 yards per carry. I think I'd be okay even at 91.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So So anyway, so to answer your question, Gladys, Dan's going lower on the 41 and a half, and he's taking the Texans as 7.5 point favorites. So I think that matches your two picks for the spread and for the higher lower, right?
Yes. Lower and
Texans.
And Texans at 7.5.
So I mean, you could speak for both you and Dan and why you're both going with that combo.
I will never speak for Dan.
Okay, well, you can speak for yourself. Why are you going with that combo?
Because Dallas sucks at home. They're 0-4. They haven't won a home game this year, I don't think. And
they haven't won a home game since the Packers went 8-0 at home, and then the Packers beat them in the playoffs, and they haven't won at home since.
Really? They haven't won a home game since that playoff game?
Yeah.
That sucks so bad for them.
There was a meme put out, Gladys, and it's just says, have you won in 2024? Have you won at home in 2024? Every baseball team, every college football team, every NBA team, every hockey team,
even the Edmonton Elks. The Edmonton Elks.
They've got this big group of all these teams, right? With a big old circle, and almost like what's the where it's like the little arrow? Yes. So all these teams are up here, and it's the Dallas Cowboys all by themselves. No.
I got to tell you, the CFL team, the Edmonton Elks, had a 22-game home losing streak. They won a home game in like the 2019 season. Nothing in 2020. There was no CFL season that year. Didn't win a single home game in the shortened 2021 season. Went all 2022 without a home win and last year in 2023, finally, like their third or fourth home game of the season, they finally broke the streak. It was like they were one away from tying the all-time North American pro sports home losing streak record. I think some random team that can't remember even what it was, like what sport, but they had a 23-game home losing streak, and Elks almost got there, but it took like 4 years without a home win. That 2023 season, they actually had a huge crowd at the home opener because of the long home losing streak. Anyone who bought a season ticket or a ticket to the home opener would have free home tickets until they won if they lost that home opener. So you got like that year, you still got like I think 3 or 4 free games after that before they finally did eventually win. But like even that team that's been so bad at home, even they won a home game this year. So that's how bad Dallas is. I
mean, their defense is giving up a ton of points, but they're not scoring. But I don't think like Houston isn't a team. Houston, they're not the Detroit Lions. They're not going to put their foot on your neck if they're ahead. They're going to kind of scale it back. So plus their offensive line still sucks. So I don't see them putting up a ton of points either. It goes with my prop bet, like Mike Parsons higher than a half a sack. I just see him. Even with Nico there, I still see CJ Stroud running for his life until they get that offensive line shored up. It's going to help, but it's not. He's not playing on the offensive line. So,
yeah, big return for Parsons. No, definitely saw that, and I think that makes sense because the Texans' goal line is not great. And
I don't think that the Texans can put their foot on the gas. 8 of their 10 games have been 1-score games. 5 of those 8 have been 3 points or less. I don't think they know how to,
Would-
it's for some reason they can't take last year and put it into this year's team. And I understand the injuries and that sort of thing. Their offensive line has been absolute dog shit.
Right.
Giving up 34 sacks. You don't score touchdowns or field goals going backwards for some reason. Maybe that's a new thing. I don't know. But yeah, 34 sacks this team has given up. It's at least one sack in every single game for CJ Stroud this year.
Yeah,
He's getting
so-
sacks like Jordan Love is throwing interceptions.
Which, to be fair, you'd rather be taking sacks than interceptions.
Fair.
I know, because one of those interceptions that was a pick six probably should have been a sack, and he threw it away to avoid a sack, and it was like, oh, you made it even worse. So, and all that to say, but it's the Cowboys, right? And that's where my dilemma is, because I had two easy picks. I mean, one pick was locked in, right? There's a Canadian playing in the game tonight, Mr. John Mechie. So I went underdog, and there was only one line. It was 17.5 receiving yards. So easy pick, John Mechie higher than 17.5 receiving yards.
Oh, you need to look now. They do that a lot here lately. There's about 5 of them now. You got of course, the touchdown, anytime touchdown, 16.5 rushing and receiving, 15.5 receiving, 1.5 receptions, 11.5 longest reception, and then even have a little bit more of a boost for a half of a anytime touchdown in the first half. So there's a few extra Mechie lines out there now.
All right, let me see. What do they have for the goal line guide? It says it's likely to be a rushing touchdown, so I wouldn't want to go with the touchdown lines, I don't think. 1.5 receptions actually does kind of sound interesting.
I do like that Underdog has given you an option to fluctuate some of these lines to where you can get a bigger boost. So if you have for instance, Mechie's line on receptions is 1.5. It's actually not even a full point for taking that higher. It's a 0.92. But you can go up to 2.5, you get a 1.8 boost. You go up to 3.5, and if you take 3.5 and get 4 receptions from him, it's almost a full 5-point boost.
And I mean, like, Jamie likes boosting the yards. He thinks he likes Mechie over 25 yards, so 15.5 receiving yards.
Over 25 yards? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they give you 19 and then 29. So we'll go at 19, gives you a 1.1.
Interesting. But even this is like the base.
What was your initial pick, Cuff?
Well, it was his receiving yard line, but then
which was what?
Well, I had it at 17.5. Gator says it's 15.5 now.
Yeah, it's 15.5 now.
Okay.
I think, and I mean, basically, it feels like it's like they're both one and the same. Like, if he's going to catch 2 passes, he's probably going to get 16 yards. He could get that on 1 catch, right? So it's really just.
Yeah,
what did you say for his longest yard or longest
11.5 longest reception? I think, to be honest, if you're gonna choose Mechie on receptions, I mean, would you trust that he's gonna get 2 receptions for 4 yards? I mean, there's a possibility, I guess, but if he's gonna get 2 receptions, it's gonna be probably 6-7 yards a piece. You're gonna be over that. You can actually get that at even money, compared to taking a depreciation on 1.5 receptions.
Yeah, that's a good point. I suppose the smarter thing would not be to pick him in this type of thing and to actually pick him in like a parlay and combine those together. But just for the sake of having a Canadian, I will take a John Mechie line. But I guess I'll think about it as the episode goes on. But just we'll share Jamie's 10 leg plus 1,100 parlay. So we've got Joe Mixon anytime touchdown. Joe Mixon 50 plus rushing yards, so an adjusted line there, down from what we said 91 earlier. CeeDee Lamb 50 plus receiving yards. Nico 50 plus receiving yards. Tank Dell 25 plus receiving yards. John Mechie 25 plus receiving yards. Gotta love the wannabe Canadian, who I consider Canadian, Jamie, taking a Canadian in this parlay. That's great. Stroud 175 plus passing yards. Texans money line total higher than 30. But under 54.5. So Jamie just messing with all the lines, altering them, but putting them together in a parlay for a 10-legger. And even though it's a lot of easy things that he thinks will come together pretty easily, it's plus 1,100. You just need all 10 of them to hit.
That's that's a lot of Texans on there to.
Yeah. That is.
Yeah, I just it's gonna be rough.
There's my first
I'll
thought,
give you this for that CeeDee Lamb plus 50. So yesterday or this morning rather, CeeDee Lamb's line is at 59.5. It's moved to 60.5. He's hit that number 59.5 in every game but 2 this year.
Yeah,
Guess
but that was
which
with
2?
Dak.
The last 2 with Cooper Rush, he's not hit 60 yards.
Yeah,
So just keep that in mind, Jamie. Hopefully he gets that 50. I need him to get 50 in a TD, I guess. But that was one that stood out to me. And then Rico Dowdle, I think, is a complete trap. It's
Just not to spoil Dan's entire show, but he definitely was talking about like he liked the under on Rico Dowdle.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, though, with Rico Dowdle, right? His line is 12.5 carries. He's only hit that one time this year. 55.5 rushing yards. He's only done that twice. 81.5 rushing and receiving. He's only done that once. And one of those was when he hit the 55.5 rushing. So I feel like Rico Dowdle.
That was probably the game he hit the over 12.5 carries.
Actually, I think let me just double check, but
sorry.
It was. Yeah, in the game that he hit the carries, yeah, it was because he had 46 yards rushing. 46 yards rushing. That was 11 carries. No, sorry, it was the next game against Pittsburgh where he had 20 carries, 87 yards rushing. Then he was 2 for 2 in the passing game at 27 yards. So it was a Pittsburgh game. That's the only game that he did all that in. I'm not trusting anything for Rico Dowdle, and I'm a little skeptical about Lamb at that number just because Cooper Rush is. I mean, he's 5-0 when he doesn't play the Eagles. He's 0-2 against the Eagles.
Take more, and Jay says you need to take more unders if you like money. Overs are for entertainment. We do entertain people here because, yeah, frankly, we've barely touched lowers this year on our props. Like between the three of us collectively, between Dan, myself, and Gladys, I'm seeing only 3 lowers if I tracked it correctly. And Gladys, I don't think you've taken a lower once on a prop this
year. Wait, on a prop? No, I have not. On over unders, yes.
Yeah, certainly you've done it on the higher lowers. We all have. We've got a mix of both. But yeah, I took the lower one time. Dan did it twice. And honestly, we hit all 3 of those props when we did. So maybe Jay is right. We need to be taking more lowers than we are. I won't take a lower on the Canadian though. So I gotta pump up the Canadian in a positive way. It didn't work last week with Michael Hoach not getting half a sack. So if they had tackle props, I think he had like 5 tackles. So if they had a tackle prop available, that would have been nice, but they didn't. So that was smart on underdog, to be honest. But yeah, you know what? I decided I'm just going to stick with the receiving yards. I think John Mechie, I think he can get 16 receiving yards. Whether he gets 2 catches or not, I think he could do that on 1 catch in theory. The last 2 games, his longest reception was longer than 16. I suppose in theory that then I should go for the longest reception. What would you say that? 11.5? I guess it's not that much different. Yeah, 15.5 receiving yards. I'll stick with it. John Mechie. There we go. That's the prop. And I'm going higher on the 41.5. And just for the history of Monday Night Football this year, anytime we've had a 41.5 or lower line, the higher has hit every time. And so I haven't gone higher too often this year, maybe more than I typically are, where Dan, lower. I'm just auto lower almost every game. I've tried to mix in some hires, and I'm 3 for 3 the 3 times I've taken the higher. So I'm feeling the higher here. Maybe it's trying to forecast lots of fantasy points, especially for Nico Collins, and that like the Texans could cover this on their own if they wanted to. And that maybe the Cowboys put up enough of a fight because the Texans, as we've said, have such a hard time stepping on the throat. If I think they could really shut down the Cowboys and to single-digit points, okay, maybe, but the Texans have also had this inability to really close out the close games. That's why I was almost tempted to take Dallas at 7.5-point underdogs. I just can't pick Cooper Rush. I can't pick on that side. So What we're gonna do is for the third week in a row, and this hasn't happened yet this year. 3 weeks in a row where all three of us, Dan, Gladys, and myself, have the same pick against the spread. 2 weeks ago, it worked. We all hit the Bucks as 9.5-point underdogs. They didn't win, but they didn't allow the Chiefs to cover a 10-point spread. We all picked the Rams last week. And Reggie was right with the Dolphins. We should have trusted it wasn't just a homer pick. Reggie actually got that as being the only person on the show last week to pick the Dolphins. All of us were laughing at it, but it turns out that was the pick. So far, when we've made unanimous picks, whether it's been against the spread or with the higher lower, we're 3-6. So hoping this week we get to 4-6 and get this Texans pick right.
What were your picks?
I'm gonna take the Texans money line. I don't know if I'm willing to give up 7.5. This 41.5 though, it just is so teasing to not take the over. So yeah, I guess I'm gonna take the over. Because I mean, Kyle, I'll put it to you like this. When the best argument for a team to cover a 7-point spread as a home dog is it might be motivating to change the narrative to its disappointing season, it's probably not a good wager to bet. But just if I say, let's pump the brakes on Dallas right quick. They are the worst team in the league outside of oh no, there is nobody else. They are the worst team in the league right now.
The Jags looked pretty bad, not gonna lie.
I gotta tell you a little peek behind the scenes. Kyle asked me last week, he's like, hey, can you come back on to one of these shows? And I was like, yeah, you just let me know when. He goes, well, we got this week, and then we got this week, and then we got this week. And I said, how in the fuck does Dallas have so many fucking Monday night games? And he literally, as I said, he was already typing. Gladys asked that same question.
Yeah, because we get them again week 14. So 3 weeks from now, folks, we got to talk about another Dallas game.
What's Texans money line? Did he say? What is it right now?
Right now it is 375, negative 375.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
The Jets say hold my beer. We're talking about the worst teams. They're pretty bad too. That's a good point, Jay. Dowdle's attempts are 13.5 on DK.
Yeah, they moved to 13.5 on underdog as well.
But that's moved up.
Yeah.
That went up a carry, right?
Yeah,
it was 12.5 before, right?
Yeah, it's 12.5. So somebody, multiple people have taken the 12.5. I mean, listen, Rico Dowdle is the only running back that they actually give the ball to outside of
running back they have.
Well, he's the only one that's not cooked.
Well,
right? There's literally a guy named Cook who's pretty cooked, and not that James Cook is cooked.
Yeah, outside of Zeke inside the 5-yard line. That's the only time that he gets it, right? It's just
oh my God.
But again, I mean, it's still Mike McCarthy. It's still a bad offense. And when you look at what Dowdle's done, I mean, again, his highest outside of the one game against Pittsburgh, 12 attempts last week, 12 attempts the week before in Atlanta. They don't 12.5 it's a trap. It's a trap because you look at he got 12, right? Let's see. Zeke got 22. No, I'm sorry, 6 touches in that game. In that same game that Dowdle got 12. Did Deuce Vaughn get any? No, he didn't get any. But they're not, and they're playing from behind. Somebody's got to. Mike McCarthy's trying to save his own job. He doesn't care if the players, want to save his job. He's got to throw the ball.
I mean, that seems like more than Eberflus. It feels like he's definitely not the head coach next year in Dallas.
Well, I mean, and if Jamie asked me if we watched the fight on Friday, and unfortunately, I did. I not because the fight was bad, because the undercard was great, but Netflix as a live streaming service is absolute garbage. They better get that fixed before Thanksgiving or Christmas rather, because I got to see Beyonce. Period. The end. But let's get that fixed first and foremost. But of course, the fight was held at the same stadium, AT&T Stadium there in Dallas, and
Jake Paul has more wins in Dallas than the Cowboys.
Well, I think it's a Mike thing. They can't win in Dallas. Maybe that's what it is. I'm sorry.
That's sorry to all Mikes.
You're not winning in Dallas. Just don't go to Dallas.
That's what he said on the mic, though.
Yeah,
it was Gator Jay saying that. But one thing I'd love for you to say, Jay, is what is your absolute favorite prop for tonight?
My favorite prop tonight is Dalton Schultz. higher than 2.5 receptions. 5 of the last 6 games, that's higher than 2.5. In
Yeah.
every game but one this year, and that was in week 7 against Green Bay, where he only had 2 targets. He's had at least 3 targets in every single game. So they want to get, I understand they're getting Nico Collins back.
But they
Going
have Stephon Diggs is out. So
Right,
that
but
was
going back to the 34 sacks that they have given up on offense to or CJ Stroud's taken on offense. What's the easiest way to get the ball out outside of your running back? Check it down to Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz will open up the passing game going deeper down the field to both Dell and Collins. But the one that it's almost all but a lock for me. Is on every card that I've put in for this game is Micah Parsons over a half a sack. Again, 34.5 sacks. It's a no-brainer. But Parsons, when he came back from injury last week, you're playing against the Eagles, who, of course, is a better offensive line than Houston is. They've got a more mobile quarterback than what CJ Stroud is right now with Jalen Hurts, and Parsons still got 2 sacks. So give me the layup, in my opinion. Overshown is not playing tonight too, so that may help out Parsons and not having to split the sacks.
Don't have to overstate that, but yes, Jay's great joke. The fight is still buffering. It's still taking too long. 3 days later, 4 days later.
Thank God, either I had stepped away, or I didn't freeze on the exact moment that Mike Tyson ended the interview.
Yeah, I unfortunately. But unfortunately, I wasn't watching the fight, so I still have to see that, even if I didn't actually watch, because I other disappointment. I watched the Detroit Red Wings lose to the Anaheim Ducks, even though they had a 3-1 lead against a team where they were clearly outplaying them, and then 1 goal against, and it all collapsed. What? That was awful. That was awful to watch. It literally made me sick.
Oh, but I know why I brought that up. It was all because it was at AT&T Stadium. Jerry Jones and Michael Irvin were somehow for some reason up on at the announcer's booth, and Michael Irvin, in only a way that Michael Irvin can do it, very subtly told the announcers that he was going to start whispering in Jerry Jones's ear about hiring Deion Sanders as their next head coach.
God.
Well, I mean, I was actually going to bring that up earlier. Like, I heard this on I can't remember where I heard this, but does Deion Sanders just go wherever the first overall pick is, and then just like convince that team to draft his son, and then someone said trade Max Crosby for another first rounder, and you draft Travis Hunter, and like you bring Colorado to wherever it is you're going. That whole.
But that's the problem that they're going to have, right? They're going to have that issue because Travis Hunter and Shador are probably both top 6, top 7 picks at worst. So they're not both going to end up
the
on
Raiders. If the
team.
Raiders get the first overall pick, you trade Max Crosby away to ensure you get both.
This isn't going to be 2 years ago. They're not getting the 2nd and 3rd overall pick, and they're going to be able to just dominate the league. I just don't see it happening.
Sorry, Gladys, what did you say?
Micah Parsons' prop for sacks just went down to 0.25 instead of a half a sack, a quarter of a sack, which I don't even know.
Oh, wow.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, because you can
because players can get half sacks, and you could in theory push the half, right? So there's no quarter sack, so it ensures that if he gets a half sack, you don't push the line. Essentially, that's what it's for. But you think he's going to get a full sack anyway, which I guess that lets us a good time to recap the picks.
Wait, I'm sorry. Explain that to me again. A quarter sack?
Well, there's no such thing as quarter sacks,
right?
Exactly. But there are half sacks. So in theory, Parsons could get a sack, the sack Stroud at the same time someone else does, and that's his only sack. So he would only get a half sack. So you wouldn't actually win on the half. You would just push, right? Like sometimes,
but if it's a quarter sack and you go over, then if he gets a half sack, you automatically win.
Exactly, right? That the quarter sack is just a way to ensure that a push doesn't happen. He either gets 0 or he gets a half or more.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
That's all that means. But yeah, that is apparently that is Jay's pick as well. So Jay and Gladys both agree the best prop of the night is Micah Parsons, half a sack higher. Dan and I both going with Texans receiving yards.
Is that a game we were playing? Did I just win something? Did I win something?
You're
Well,
just
actually,
a winner on
there is
your own
something to
pick.
win in that Gladys, Dan,
Yeah.
and I have a contest all year where we again pick against the spread or higher, lower than a prop pick each week. So each game gives us 3 opportunities to get a win or a loss, and we track it for the whole season and see who
There you
wins.
go.
Right now,
Yeah,
I
it's
am
just a
winning.
win.
So Gladys won last year. Got to say that. But kudos to Gladys. But yeah, right now I'm winning 21 wins, 18 losses is my record right now. Gladys and Dan are both 17 and 22. So I'm 4 points up on both of them, which means if I miss entirely in 1 week and they get everything right, they'd still be behind me. So I've got a bit of breathing room right now, hoping that I continue putting the pressure on and win this thing for this year. But yeah, so Gladys again going with Parsons half a sack. Dan and I both going Texans receiving yards. Nico Collins higher than 60 and a half receiving yards for Dan's pick. And I'm trusting the Canadian John Mechie at 15 and a half receiving yards. All of us are Gladys and Dan are both going lower than 41 and a half. And Jay, I guess you agree with me on the higher 41 and a half. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's if we're gonna take Collins and and Mixon and Mechie, I don't see how you don't take the over 41 and a half. I mean, that's 25 or let's call it 28 to what 14, and we're crushing that number or right at that number.
That's 30. Yeah, it's 42. Yeah, 28 to 14. Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that 6 touchdowns are going to be scored, but I don't think Dallas is going to score 2 touchdowns. I'm hoping they score 2 touchdowns and they're both go to CeeDee Lamb, but not holding my breath with Cooper Rush. So
Yeah, no, that's true too. But I guess to be fair, Gladys is taking a sack prop though, so she's not taking an offensive player prop. She's going with the defensive prop. So I suppose it makes sense for her to take the lower. I don't know about Dan though. Dan's going with an offensive player in the lower, but yeah, so we're a little split there. But one thing we are not split on, we're all taking the Texans with this fairly large spread at 7.5 points. And I debated it. I was tempted to take the Cowboys, but ultimately I so little faith in Cooper Rush that even though the Texans they've only covered a 7.5 point spread once this year. Like if that was the spread for every game, they would have only covered once. So like they've won. I think they've won 6 games this year, but like as Jay mentioned, they're all mostly 1-score games, and like they're just not covering or they're just flat out losing. So it's not a team that you'd have like super confidence in, but that's how little confidence I have in the Cowboys. So we're all across the board unanimous pick there with the Texans at 7.5 point favorites.
Dallas sucks.
Well, I would say our consensus pick record kind of sucks at 3-6. So we're hoping that we can get an inch closer to 500, make it at 4-6 this week with the Texans covering. But we'll find out. And I guess 2 minutes before kickoff. So thank you, Jay, for joining us.
Yeah, I got one more for you because
sure.
brought up that the Cowboys haven't won a game at home this year. 1989 is the last time that they went winless at home.
I think they had 1 win that year, right? That was Troy Aikman's rookie season, and they had the first overall pick the year before, and then back-to-back first overall picks.
Yeah, I think that was Aikman's rookie year. Cowboys have never lost to the Texans at home. 3-0 at AT&T Stadium and Texas Stadium combined.
Wait.
I have a feeling that's going to end.
They've never lost to the Texans at home, and they've never lost the Texans away. Is that what you're saying?
I'm sure they have lost.
No. They haven't lost to the Texans in their home building, whether that was Texas Stadium or AT&T Stadium.
Oh, okay.
The Texans didn't play at Texas Stadium just to confuse us. Thank you.
Oh yeah, that was the old Dallas Stadium.
Okay.
Were there curtains on that one?
No, that was under the ground. There was no sunlight.
Oh, there you go. Wonder why they don't do that with this next one.
Yeah.
We appreciate you coming on, Jay. It was great insight, great jokes too. It was awesome, fun time having you.
Thanks, Jay. Give your granddaughter a hug for me.
I will do it. She should be home in about an hour.
So Jay is at FantasyJ77 on Twitter. But I know you write and contribute to a lot of different places. So I'll let you kind of list off.
Actually, right now I'm only doing my Monday morning show for Club Fantasy right now. I'm not writing anything during this season, so that's nice. Just get to relax a little bit.
Yeah, easy. We're all, Jamie's grinding too. Like he and I are both at Fantasy Six Pack. Gladys does her article every week with Going for Two. So yeah, the grind is fun. So yeah, enjoy the relaxing time. We certainly enjoyed having you on today.
Absolutely, I appreciate y'all. It's been fun.
And then Gladys at Gladys L. Tyler. I'm at Senra Says. Gladys, any final words for the crowd?
Nope. Go CJ Stroud.
Go Nico Collins and Jake Ferguson. That's multiple touchdowns for both, please. That would be amazing.
I need Jake Ferguson. I don't need Jake Ferguson, but I have Jake Ferguson. But
it's funny.
I don't care.
There's one league where I have Mixon going against Tank Dell. Another league I have Tank Dell going against Mixon. I think I'm right now leading in both. So there's definitely a Goldilocks zone where I can win both those leagues. But
Goldilocks zone.
Like not too much on Mixon side, not too much on Dell, just right.
I've never heard that phrase before.
Oh, okay.
Goldilocks zone.
I think they use it to like when they're exploring for alternate Earths, like if humans have to leave Earth for another planet, they're trying to they look at planets in that far enough away from the sun. Like so typically we'd look for like the third planet away from the sun because anything else is probably too cold and anything else close is too hot. So like when they explore for planets to see if do they have water? Is it habitable? When they go to solar systems, that's what they look for, that Goldilocks zone in terms of space.
The Goldilocks zone.
So I think that's where the
I will be using it in alternative text and maybe things that don't apply to planets and
like we just did right now, right? Like you could totally. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's from a nursery rhyme, so I'm sure it can apply to a lot of different things.
I mean, I know where it's from. I've just never heard it used in common parlance.
Okay. Well, there you go.
I will be using it all week for, I don't know. I'll just make things up and call it the Goldilocks zone. Well, not too hot, not too cold. It's the Goldilocks zone.
And I mean, the perfect place to be is on the Going for Two Live Network. Great show.
Oh my Lord! First play of the game. Nico Collins on a swing pass. Gone.
Touchdown.
First play of the game. Oh, there's a flag. Of course.
No!
You wouldn't be Monday Night Football without a flag.
A flag. Jerry's throwing out money. That sucks.
Holding Dallas. That would be
hilarious.
Nah, they already ineligible man downfield. I mean, I don't know how it was an ineligible man downfield. The ball was CJ Stroud took the ball, took one step and slung it. I don't know how he was downfield that quick. Let me see this.
Oh my God.
Man, the Texans O-line's better than we thought. They get down to the second level really quickly.
He was by 1 yard. Get out of here with that crap.
Oh.
The ref is playing against his fantasy team is playing against college. You can see that already.
Or Jerry.
That sucks.
Passing out money.
Yeah, I thought he was gonna.
If you had said nothing, I would never have known that happened, and wouldn't have. That sucks. All right,
play number two. Guess what? There's a flag.
Oh my God!
Are you gonna say another catch by Collins? Okay.
No, it was a run by Mixon, but it's probably coming back too. It is. Oh no, that one there is holding on Dallas. So at least
you couldn't have done that the first time though. There wouldn't have been man. Okay. I'm glad that my freak out was so entertaining, Gladys. Maybe that's the note we leave on. I was gonna say the Goldilocks zone for the perfect place to watch on Thursday nights is the In No Particular Order or Don't Give a Shit show, which Gladys will sometimes be joined by Jamie and other guests, maybe, or other co-hosts. Shannon, I don't know, basically who abandoned you the last few weeks.
Yeah, Shannon's having personal issues, so he probably won't be on for the rest of the season.
Okay, well, you're still fantastic, even if you do solo shows. So definitely check that out Thursday.
Thanks.
Again, great shows all throughout the week on the Going for Two Live Network. So be sure to subscribe on YouTube, like the videos, comment, help us out, to help our reach, and reach out to us in the comments. Appreciate Jay, Jamie. I guess
drive safe, Jay.
But Jay and Jamie, thank you both of you.
Get home safe, Jay.
Yeah, we appreciate and love the two of you, and that's from all of us here at the going for 2 Live Network and the 2-point
Gator, thanks for
conversion
joining us.
100%. Absolutely. I enjoyed it.
We'll see you
to
guys
the
later.
point. For 2 to lose.